Welcome, everyone. As you're entering the room, we'll get started here in just a few minutes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Heather Paul, and I am a public affairs specialist with State Farm. And you are joining us for National Dog Bite Prevention Week, which is April 12th through the 18th. We are, as a coalition, very excited that you have expressed interest in dog bite prevention, not only from an insurance standpoint, but we're also going to be talking more about how COVID-19 is impacting our pets, their behavior, and how we can reduce risk as we shelter at home with our pets. I have been coordinating the Dog Bite Prevention Week and animal activities for State Farm for about a decade. I also run the arson dog program for State Farm. So I have the opportunity to work with leaders in this field. And State Farm is unique in this insurance world. We don't have a breed restriction policy, and we also release our dog bite claim numbers every year, which I'll go over here in just a moment. Also joining us, though, we have representatives from the Insurance Information Institute to provide a perspective from the insurance industry. We have the president of the American Veterinary Medical Association to talk more about why Dog Bite Prevention Week is important, and also how COVID is impacting our animals. We also have a representative veterinarian from American Humane to not only talk about how we can prevent, reduce risk for children to being bitten, but also how we can help those animal shelters and rescues at this time when they're struggling with, potentially struggling with not only funding, but also resources. And then finally, we will have our glorious, esteemed celebrity animal expert, Victoria Stillwell, who will talk about ways that we can reduce stress and anxiety and do some training on the side with our pets as we shelter at home. Just a couple of simple reminders. The chat has been disabled, so you won't be able to chat with each other. And we also, if you have any questions, please feel free to use that Q&A box that is at the bottom, and simply click on that, enter your question, and we will work to address that. At the end of it, I will also share an email address for Michael Sanfilippo from the AVMA, who will be able to, if you have any interest in doing some interviews with any of the speakers, he can help coordinate those. So with that, let me talk a little bit about State Farm and what we are doing in the world of dog bite prevention. So as I mentioned, the coalition joins forces each year to raise awareness about dog bite prevention and the risk that it has on all of us. We are interacting with dogs on a regular basis, whether it's in the home, when we were able to be out, but right now in particular is a stressful time because we have been introduced to a whole new concept of sheltering at home as a result of the corona pandemic. And as that, it's brought a lot of uncertainty to our lives. Dogs that were used to being home alone during the day because kids were at school and people were at work are now with their families 24/7. And with that brings some of that uncertainty. So with that, some of that stress, dogs pick up on our stress, they pick up on our anxiety, and they may be acting out negatively. And that could be everything from barking and aggressive behavior to even destructive behavior. Likewise, when we have kids at home, they're running around, they're looking for things to do, so it's maybe loud in the house, and there's a lot of activity going on. We have more deliveries coming to the door, and as a result of that, dogs are definitely feeling that stress. They're picking up on our stress, they're picking up on things that are happening in the home, and they may react negatively. So just think about all of the stress and anxiety that we feel. We're able to communicate that with people in our own circle of influence, whether it's family members or other people in the house or friends, or on webinars like this. And we can help alleviate some of that stress on ourselves by talking to others. Now put yourself in a position of a dog who doesn't speak our same language. And when they're stressed and anxious and they're trying to communicate to us how they're feeling, we may misinterpret it, we may not recognize it, and as a result, dogs may feel like the only outlet that they have is to possibly bite someone in the house. So we are going to share some information so one of the things that is important to recognize is that most dogs will never bite. So even our pets in our home are not necessarily going to always be prone to acting out. A lot of them know already, we can recognize their signals and body language changes, and we can react accordingly. But we also have to recognize that dogs are individuals and have unique personalities. This is not a breed problem. This is us learning to interpret and keep our pets safe as well as our kids safe. So breed may dictate how a dog looks, but it does not dictate how a dog reacts. It's not going to be guaranteed by breed or type. The only way that we can really consistently reduce dog bites is with education. We have to reinforce the importance of responsible pet ownership to protect our families, our pets, and our communities. And that is the whole point of the National Dog Bite Prevention Week Coalition and why we all come together each year to share this important message. Because we want to not only reduce the potential for people to be bitten or injured by dogs, but we also ultimately want to reduce the number of dogs that are relinquished or euthanized because they have acted out and bitten. Most dogs, probably no dog, wakes up in the morning and says, I can't wait to bite somebody today. So we need to learn to recognize what they're saying and also appreciate that as unique dogs with personalities, they're going to react differently. Some dogs may roll up in a ball or retreat to a safe spot if they feel uncomfortable. Others may choose fight rather than flight. So being able to understand what our dog is saying to us and react accordingly is important. And as I mentioned, State Farm is unique in that we are one of the few insurance companies in the United States that does not have a breed restriction policy, which means that when you contact a State Farm agent, we're not going to ask, nor do we care what breed of dog you own. Instead, we want to reinforce the importance of being responsible with your pets and providing this type of education to reduce that risk. Over the past decade, so since from between 2010 and 2019, State Farm has paid over $1.1 billion for injury claims. That's for farm ranch, that's for commercial homeowners as well as renters. Last year alone, State Farm paid $146 million for 3,340 dog-related injury claims. That average amount per claim was $43,712. That is significant. Those are all injuries. The majority of them could have been prevented by some simple pet owner responsible actions. How is that related to previous years? It is a slight increase from 2018, about 2%, about 60 claims, so it's not huge. But what is significant is the increase of 18.5% in the amount paid. So we had an increase of almost $23 million compared to 2018. Why is that? Well, certainly when a dog bites, you're going to have not only injuries and healthcare expenses, which rise every year, you're also going to have lawsuits that result from that. And when you have judgments that may come in large for a dog-related injury, you've also got more access to things like plastic surgery for, depending on the severity of the bite. Those are going to result in an increase in the amount paid for those claims. So it's not surprising that we see an increase in the amount. What we want to do is continue to reduce the number of dog-related injury claims. The other thing that's important to point out when it comes to dog injury claims is that it's not just bites. It is also injuries related from an exuberant dog pushing you down the stairs accidentally and you break a leg or break an arm. And that can also result in a dog-related injury claim. So it isn't just teeth to flesh, it's also other injuries that come into play with that. And finally, I want to reinforce the importance of pet ownership as a privilege. You know, we are responsible for the health and safety of our pets and also protecting other people from injuries. So most pet owners would never dream of intentionally putting a person in harm's way, but it happens every single day. If we are not responsible with our pets, accidents like this can happen. A person can be injured and sometimes it can be severe. So with that, I would like to introduce my colleague from the Insurance Information Institute. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to introduce Janet Ruiz from the Insurance Information Institute. Each year, State Farm and the Insurance Information Institute aggregate our claims data to get an industry perspective on how dog-related injuries are impacting consumers as well as the insurance industry. So Janet is going to share some of those numbers and give a little bit of background about Janet. She is actually a former State Farmer. She used to work for State Farm before joining the Insurance Information Institute. She is the Director of Strategic Communications for III. Based in the San Francisco Bay Area, she joined III in January 2015 as the California representative, bringing 25 years of insurance experience to her job. She has a bachelor's degree in business administration from Thomas Edison State College in New Jersey, and she also has a charter property casualty underwriter designation, CPCU, and an associate's designation in management from the Insurance Institute of America. Janet, please join us and share some information about how the insurance industry views dog bites.
Thanks, Heather. It's really a privilege to talk with you today. The Insurance Information Institute has a mission. It's to help the public understand insurance, how it works and what it does. And in this case, we're talking about one of your favorite things in your life, which is your dog. And it's important to understand that owning a dog means that you're responsible if it bites or injures another person. And we see this, as Heather said, she read off many numbers to you, and they are meaningful because it just lets you know a little bit about how big the problem is. But the important thing that we're here today to talk about is what are the solutions? And this is a great time in your life when you are maybe home more, or you may be gone more if you're a nurse or a doctor or a professional that is having to be at work more. So there's two different scenarios here, but both need attention. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that responsibility that you have. If your dog bites or injures another person, then you probably will have to put in a claim to your insurance. And people don't always realize that that's what the outcome is. So while we're talking numbers of claims, we're only talking about the ones where a claim gets put into the insurance company. So that tells you that the numbers of actual incidents are probably even more so. So in 2019, the number of dog bite and injury claims jumped 2.9% nationally. So it was 17,297 in 2018 and jumped to 17,802 in 2019. And what's even more significant is the average cost per claim rose 14.7% from 2018 to 19. The average cost had been $39,017, and it went to $44,760. This again is the average amount per claim for the dog bite or dog injury that took place. Now, when we look at our states, the top 5 states with the most dog bites and dog injuries are California, Florida, Texas, New York, and Illinois in that order. So California had the most dog bite injuries and claims, and Florida, Texas, New York, Illinois followed suit. The most expensive claims were from New York. Their average is actually $55,801 per dog bite claim. Now, again, we're talking that's the average amount. So some are more, some are less. But this just gives you an idea of why it's so important to take the time to train your dog and learn to recognize its behavior. You can learn so much, and we're going to give you so much more information as we go through this today. But there's a lot of ways to learn, and right now you can even go online and learn, especially if you're a new pet owner. Take responsibility, and thanks for being here today to learn more about it. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Janet. Wow, it's very deep information to really understand the problem. And now that we've all recognized what the issue is, that the people are not being responsible with pets and that there are things that we can do, let's bring in the experts to start answering questions and sharing knowledge about what we can do to impact this and make our families and our pets safer, especially at a time of uncertainty like we have now. So who better than to have the president of the American Veterinary Medical Association, Dr. John Howe. Dr. Howe is a graduate of the University of Minnesota College of Veterinary Medicine. He is an active leader in the veterinary profession for over 30 years at both the state and national level. Prior to his appointment to the AVMA as president, he served as an executive board member, vice president, and the president of the Minnesota Veterinary Medical Association. Dr. Howe, please share some information with us about how dog bite prevention is important, but also some of the challenges that face pets right now.
Well, thank you, Heather, and thank you all for joining us today in what has become, for so many of us, a largely virtual world. We certainly appreciate your time and your interest in dog bite prevention, which is very important to the public health. These are challenging times for all of us. We are all adjusting to broad changes in society and behavior. We are also adjusting to changes in our homes. We are living in closer quarters. We're spending more time together. Our routines are really no longer routine. All of us, including our pets, are living a new norm, and we all at times need our own space. One very interesting and very encouraging development in these times is the rise in adoptions and fostering of pets into our homes. This is great news no matter our circumstances, because more animals have found new loving homes. And whether we're enjoying the company of a longtime companion or a new addition, we should all be aware of the stress that can lead to dog bites. As veterinarians, we have a professional and ethical obligation to address the issue of dog bites. And we can help in minimizing the occurrence of dog bites by helping educate the pet-owning public about what they can do to preserve and enhance the human-animal bond. National Dog Bite Prevention Week focuses on educating people about preventing dog bites because they pose a serious health risk to our communities and society. More than 4.5 million people are bitten by dogs each year in the United States, and more than 800,000 receive medical attention for dog bites, according to the CDC. At least half of these impacted are children. Almost 1 in 5 people bitten by dogs require medical attention, and children are the most common victims of dog bites and are far more likely to be severely injured. Most dog bites affecting young children occur during everyday activities and while interacting with familiar dogs. Any dog can bite, big, small, male, female, young, or old. Even the cuddliest, fuzziest, sweetest pet can bite if provoked. Remember, it's not the dog's breed that determines whether it'll bite, but rather the dog's individual history and behavior. Having children in close contact with pets all day can create potential risks, especially if they are unsupervised. That's why it is so important to remind folks that animals and children, particularly young children, should always be supervised, especially during this time. Also, one more thing to watch out for with pets. If dog owners notice concerning changes in their pet's behavior, they should reach out to their veterinarian for a consultation. It could be a behavior issue related to changes in the family's lifestyle, or it could be an underlying medical condition. This is also a good time to talk about socializing pets, especially a new dog that just came into the home. Socialization is the process of preparing a dog to enjoy interactions and be comfortable with other animals, people, places, and activities. A creative approach to a pet's socialization can indeed provide the benefits of socialization while also following recommendations for social distancing during COVID-19 pandemic. As they carry out that plan, it's important for dog owners to reward engagement with praise and play, treats, things which create a positive experience and encourage the dog to enjoy new experiences without becoming fearful or aggressive. In closing, the joy our pets bring us is immeasurable, and that's why education and appropriate socialization are always important when it comes to preventing dog bites. I look forward to answering any questions you may have during our question and answer time coming up shortly. Heather, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Howe, and thank you for your leadership during this time. Certainly with veterinarians being on the front lines and being essential to the care, they are at risk of being exposed on a regular basis to COVID, and we definitely applaud their commitment to keeping our pets safe. One other new facet of this coronavirus pandemic is the growing trend of what we call pandemic pets. We see a growing number of animals being brought into our homes, whether it's because we're at home and we're looking for a companion, or we are fostering for people that are sick. And with that is a great reminder about the responsibility of pet owners. So we have Dr. Lisa Staubus from American Humane to share some tips and information about our pandemic pets. Dr. Lisa Staubus received her Doctor of Veterinary degree from Oklahoma State University. She's currently a veterinarian with American Humane, the country's first national humane organization, which rescues, shelters, feeds, and protects more than 1 billion animals around the world each year. She is also heavily involved with both American Humane's rescue program, which saves animals in disasters and cruelty cases, and American Humane's military program, which finds dogs in need of forever homes and trains them for life-saving service animals for veterans. Lisa, please look forward to hearing more about how we can help those pandemic pets that are in our homes.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you so much. Yes, during this pandemic, American Humane and shelters and rescues around the country have been encouraging people to foster or adopt a pandemic pet from a shelter while they're self-isolating. This improves the lives of people while potentially saving the lives of animals. As the media has reported, and Dr. Howe mentioned, this effort has been tremendously successful, with fostering and adoptions increasing dramatically at many urban and wealthier shelters. This is good news, but of course, as Americans do these good deeds, it's so extremely important that as you meet and start to spend time with your new best friend, that it's done safely. So educate yourself on how to build that fantastic relationship that's with your dog that's based on mutual trust. And focus on positive reinforcement to maximize the behaviors you want while minimizing those that you do not want. We'll hear a little bit more from our expert dog trainer, Victoria Stillwell, on these subjects. Also, prepare your environment to allow that new pet privacy and time to rest. as these animals have often gone through so much on their way through the sheltering system before they enter a new home. You will need a way to safely contain your new pet when necessary, but we must understand that this is a living creature and it can't simply be put away when it's not being played with. It's crucial to educate all family members to ensure that the new pet is respected and not overwhelmed by too much attention before it's ready. Respect of their physical space is very important as they learn to trust you. The entire family needs to understand that this animal is capable of biting, and it is not a toy. Take extreme care to monitor closely all interactions with children, the elderly, and many pets, and make these introductions slowly in a controlled environment, while observing closely to ensure that the anxiety levels are not rising that could lead to real danger. Educating children on how to gently interact with animals is so crucial to their development and to safety, but they should be watched very closely by a responsible adult and never left unattended. Allow your new pet to have the food and water in a place where they feel no pressure from humans or other pets. The food bowl can represent a very serious stress point to an animal that has experienced true hunger. Some dogs feel equally possessive and protective of their toys, or maybe even a comfy bed. So this has to be respected to avoid injury. Utilize the expertise of those around you to help you choose which animal to bring into your home. And be realistic about that pet's needs and about how those needs will align with your lifestyle. All new pets will require time and energy to develop into the beloved family members that they can be. Avoiding dog bites in the first place avoids a double tragedy. It prevents human injuries, and it also protects the dog themselves. When a dog bites someone, they are at risk of being relinquished or even potentially put down. It's important to keep the entire family safe, including children and your new pet. More than half of the people, as Dr. Howe mentioned, half of the over 4 million people each year that are bitten are children. To help prevent this, American Humane has a free booklet online called Pet Meets Baby. They give some easy tips on ensuring good and safe, healthy introductions between a new dog and its family. It comes with an endorsement from our friend and eminent dog trainer, Victoria Stilwell, and it's available at AmericanHumane.org. We can save lives together. We can save the lives of shelter animals. We can find a pandemic pet to help us through this period of loneliness and isolation, and we can do it safely. We do encourage people to continue to reach out to their local shelters to find a quarantine friend and to support their efforts. While some shelters in big cities and wealthier areas are doing very well, many in rural areas where there are fewer people and fewer resources are really still struggling. One way to support our local shelters during this difficult time is through American Humane's new Feed the Hungry fund. This fund helps make sure that our nation's shelters have the food, the medicines, and the supplies that they need to do their important work. Let's not forget our best friends in these worst times. Visit AmericanHumane.org, and thank you so much for your attention. Back to you, Heather.
Thank you, Lisa. And actually, full disclosure, as I sit here next to my 3 adopted dogs, I appreciate everything that American Humane has done over the last century to help our 4-legged friends. And finally, as you've heard, we love her dearly, both for her positivity that she brings to training, both literally as well as figuratively. Victoria Stilwell is a world-renowned dog trainer, best known as the star of the international TV show on Animal Planet, It's Me or the Dog. She was also on CBS's Greatest American Dog, and she has an upcoming new series on the Smithsonian Channel called Dogs with Extraordinary Jobs. a passionate advocate for positive reinforcement dog training methods. She is the editor-in-chief of positively.com, which features the world's leading veterinarian behaviorists, dog trainers, and behavioral scientists. She is also the founder and CEO of the Victoria Stilwell Academy for Dog Training and Behavior, which is the world's premier global network of positive reinforcement dog trainers. Victoria, please enlighten us on what we can do as we shelter at home with our pets safely and in a fun way.
Thank you so much, Heather. I appreciate that introduction, and thank you to all the other speakers who've made such great points about how we can be safe with our dogs. I think, you know, you brought up, a lot of you have brought up that it's really important that our dogs have their own space, and that because people are at home more and children are at home more, that dogs are able to have their own areas. I call it the safe zone, that you build the safe zone, and that could be a bed, it could be a crate with the door open, it could be an entire room behind a baby gate that the dog can go to when it wants to go to. It can practice avoidance. When it's had too much, it can go to that and be by itself, and it is a children-free zone. So that's, I think, one of the most powerful things that you can do for your dog if your dog is feeling overwhelmed by having people around all the time. But I wanted to share as well some ways that you can tell if dogs are stressed or anxious. And this is one of the things that we teach, especially to children. I do the Kindness is Powerful program with State Farm, and Heather is a very important part of that. And when we can, we go around schools and we teach children not only about how incredible dogs are and how to talk dog, but we teach them how to recognize body language and teach them about various safety protocols that are easy to put into place. And we do this for kids that are 5 years old up to about kids that are around 12 years old. So we find that it's a very important program and that kids love it. We keep it light, we keep it fun. But for you today, I just want to show you a few, or tell you about a few things that you can look for in your dog when it comes to dog behavior. So I'm going to share my screen with you now. And one of the most important ways that we can prevent dog bites is to understand dog body language. And when I'm talking about language, I'm talking about all kinds, not just the way a dog moves, but I'm talking about the way a dog communicates vocally as well. So the types of signals, we call them signals, are visual, acoustic, chemical signals, that's why dogs urinate on trees, to pass information about themselves to other dogs, and also tactile. This is the way that dogs signal and talk to other dogs and talk to us as well. And we sort of break these signals down into what we call appeasement signals that are also called deference, or sometimes known as submission, basically saying, hey, I'm not a threat. Deference signals that are also designed to avoid threat, I come in peace. Displacement signals that the dog says, I really don't know what to do. And stress signals, which showing that dogs have an inability to cope with the environmental situation they're in. So I want to go over these quickly so that you have an idea. When we talk about appeasement, deference, and displacement stress signals, we're talking about things like nose licking, lip licking, and yawning. When a dog turns its head away when you approach, when it sits or lies down and crouches down, it rolls over and exposes its belly. Sometimes it can urinate. Sometimes it will blink quite fast at you, or shift its eyes, or squint, or freeze, or lift a paw when you come towards it. Now, when you're looking at body language, if you see your dog licking its lips, don't automatically think, oh, that dog is stressed, because you have to look at what the rest of the body is doing, and you also have to look at the context of where the dog is. So when you see that a dog is licking its lips, has the dog just eaten? Is the dog hungry and you're preparing its food? If there is an absence of food, and you think the situation might be overwhelming and your dog is licking, then that could be a sign of stress. The similar thing with yawning. Dogs yawn. But now are they yawning when potentially that they are surrounded by people they don't know, or they're in a situation again that is overwhelming? That might be a stress yawn. So we look at these behaviors, not just by themselves, but we look at what the whole dog is doing and the context in which the behavior is happening. Some more of these behaviors that you might see are slow movements, stretching, sniffing, sneezing, scratching or biting, curving or arcing, shaking off, piloerection, which means hackles going up, or humping. Now I'll go through some of these because you might say, yeah, but my dog stretches when it gets up from lying down, from being in bed. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Your dog is stretching like we stretch when we get out of bed. But sometimes what can happen is stretching or sneezing or licking or sniffing around is actually what we call displacement behaviors. When the dog is in an environment that feels a little threatening or is a bit overwhelmed by a person or more people, then they start to do these behaviors we call displacement behaviors. And people do it too. Sometimes they might yawn if they feel just a little uncomfortable. They might twirl their hair to calm themselves down. Or they might do something like look at their phone. Not really looking at their phone at all, but sort of doing a displacement behavior to relieve their discomfort. Well, dogs do that too. So these are the kind of things that you might say, oh yeah, that's just, I know what that means, but actually can have another meaning when the dog is in a different situation. The real fear signals that are easier for people to understand are quite overt, like when dogs have ears back or the tail is tucked. The head turns away, the brow furrows, the eye, the whale eye, so where you can just see the whites of the dog's eye. The dog is shaking or trembling. These things are all indicators that the dog is fearful. And so those are easier signals for people to look at and read. But signals that we would say absolutely don't go close to that dog, like a dog showing its teeth. Studies have shown that children from 5 years old and younger will be shown a picture of a dog showing their teeth and actually say, oh, the dog is smiling. So that's why it's really important when we talk about safety, and especially children be safe around dogs, that we really teach them what behavior means, what dog body language means. And you can do that with younger children. So how can we keep our kids safe? Never, and we say this every year, but never leave an infant, baby, toddler, or young child alone with a dog, period. Supervise all child-dog interactions. That means active supervision. It doesn't mean you let the dog play with the kid whilst you're washing the dishes. It means active supervision. Enroll your child in a dog safety information class. Use safe forms of separation in the home, like a crate or a baby gate. Give your dog a good positive canine education. And the reason why we're saying positive, you've heard these words, positive reinforcement, positive this. What we're doing is we're training dogs without fear, pain, or intimidation. We don't use things like shock collars, choke collars, or prong collars, because those can exacerbate anxiety and exacerbate aggressive response. We put the focus more on teaching dogs what to do in environments and situations rather than continually punishing them. And if we do have to tell a dog no, we do it in a way that guides the dog into making better choices rather than causing the dog to fear. So we also tell parents, and this is really important, to avoid rough play. Because if one member of the family plays roughly with a dog, then the dog is allowed to play roughly with every member of the family in the dog's mind. So for example, rough play with dad might not be good if it's a child trying to play with that dog. Well, the dog's had experience of biting, pretend biting and nipping and being quite rough, and that's not good for a child or for an elderly person. Be your dog's advocate. Don't put your dog in a situation like this poor dog that you see here that's wearing some ridiculous piece of clothing. And you can see the whale eye there. As the human leans in to kiss the dog does not look comfortable at all. But that's another thing that we teach people to do, especially kids, that kissing and hugging is not a good thing to do, because it does mean different things in dog language. Some dogs, especially dogs that know you very well, are okay with being kissed and hugged, but others not at all. And that's why we say to kids, look, general rule, just don't do it. Get all your hugs and kisses out on a cuddly toy. But when it comes to your dog, realize that sometimes that can mean something different. Be aware of your dog's level of comfort in various situations, and work hard to create situations that aren't overwhelming for your dog. By recognizing and reading dog body language, you can truly not just advocate for your dog, you can advocate for your family too. So these are some great resources that you can use. Of course, we've heard from the AVMA, would absolutely tell you and go to their site. They have some amazing information there, as well as American Humane, Dog, Pet Meets Baby, Family Paws, Positively.com, FearFreePets.com, Dog on Safe, and Dogs and Stalks. And thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much to everybody, the whole coalition that is sharing all of their great information.
I can just sum that up in one word, and that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Victoria, for being able to bring so much. And I think that what is particularly important is this isn't, again, with the coalition, we want to strengthen the relationship and the bond that you have with your dog, but understand that as an animal, there are risks that come with it. We can mitigate those risks by doing some simple things. Ask yourself all the time, does it make sense for me to put my dog in this situation? You know, is it worth the risk by letting my children be alone in a room playing with a dog, or when they're eating, or when they're sleeping? And, you know, the answer should be that it's not worth that risk. By simply actively monitoring how your pets are with your children, you can reduce a lot of incidents. And I think that that is the information that's been shared has been critically important. So with that, let's go to some questions that we've got. And the first question that we have is from our dear friend, Steve Dale. And Janet, this is a question that's directed to you. So Steve asks, according to the AVMA and veterinarian behavior groups, and even the CDC, they suggest that breed doesn't explain why dogs bite. Then why doesn't the insurance industry take action like State Farm has and not profile or discriminate based on breed? Can you talk a little bit about, from the perspective of the insurance industry, why some insurance companies may have a restriction and why others may not?
Thanks, Heather. And am I back on the, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks. That is an important question. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about how insurance works. When you buy an insurance policy, usually it's when you buy your home, you are giving information to the insurance company that they look at and decide what your risk is. And it can be anything from living in a wildfire or a hurricane type area to the type of house you have. And then it will ask if you have pets, and they are usually looking at whether you have dogs or not. So some insurance companies, like State Farm, will ask for the loss history. Has your dog ever injured someone? Have you had losses that resulted in claims that were paid because your dog either bit or injured, knocked over a delivery person, etc.? And then they'll determine how much risk that is. Some insurance companies have some breed restrictions because possibly in the past, it's usually based on numbers. They have maybe had more claims due to a certain breed. But I think the question was very good because as many are mixed breeds. So, how do you determine that? And then many breeds, as we talked about before, it's not the actual breed of the dog, it's the behavior of the dog that causes the losses. So a few things that I think we can do to help the insurance industry are talk about the types of training that are available, talk about how to find out if the actual dog has any loss history or not, and work with the industry overall. Some states have different types of rules and regulations than others. So as Steve correctly mentioned, sometimes one particular insurance company might have breed restrictions in one state and not another. So the way that we can work on this is through really concrete information, because insurance companies usually base their decisions on numbers and, how many losses have they seen in this particular area. So again, it could be wildfire risk or pet ownership. So let's work together and see if we can change this and make it more about the actual losses and the claims rather than any particular breed. Again, I think the comment about mixed breeds is also super important. So let's take this further and work on it, because I think it's something that the industry can understand better, and we can work together on it. So thank you for that question, Steve.
Thank you, Janet. And that is a great answer. And certainly, as State Farm is the largest property insurer in the country, we insure more homes that have pets in them. But also recognizing that we can't just look at a dog and immediately know how it's going to act just by its appearance or its breed. And in many cases, you may not even know. So we have determined that it is not that breed is not an example of risk. So hopefully by sharing information like this with other insurance companies and working together with III, we can hopefully maybe change some minds of other insurance companies and recognize that education is critical when it comes to reducing dog bites. I have a question also for Dr. Howe, and we see in the media a lot, obviously, concerns about how COVID-19 is spread. There's recently been some tiger in New York that was that came down with the coronavirus. So can you talk a little bit about the potential for animals and whether or not we can spread coronavirus to them or they can spread it to us?
Sure, thank you for that question. So far in America, there have been no cases whatsoever of coronavirus in dogs or cats or domestic animals for that measure. So people cannot get it from their pets, and pets cannot get it from their people. With all the people that live in America that have pets and that have had coronavirus, if this would be the case that they could get it, we would have certainly seen cases by now. But the CDC has reported no cases whatsoever. Now, there were a couple of dogs in China that they said had the virus in them. They were living with somebody with COVID-19, but the fact that you can pick up the presence of a virus from an animal does not mean that they're infected or infective. So just finding the presence means that the dogs could have licked it up from the owners and it was in their intestinal tract or in their feces or stomach contents, that type of thing. The tigers, large cats, that made people a little fearful then, well, can my domestic cat get it? But people have to remember that lions and tigers and domestic cats are three totally different species. And they get some of the same viruses, but not all. For example, lions can get canine distemper, domestic cats cannot. So there's large differences between them.
Thank you. That's great information. And I've seen a number of interviews that you've already done in the media explaining some of that. Victoria, we have a question from Leanne from Good News for Pets. She asks, can you give some specific tips for parents that are bringing newborns home to a household with pets in this COVID-19 environment? Having pets meet a newborn is already a stressful experience. So what tips can you offer that can help new parents?
It's actually no different really from when we are in the in the normal world, right? And so I would say that the most important thing, people have various tips on bring the baby's blanket that the baby's been wrapped in back to the dog before mom comes home, things like that. And absolutely you can do that. But I think it's all about preparation before. And that's why when I work with pregnant moms, I probably start about 3 months before the baby is due. And we go through everything. Like we teach the dog to walk next to the stroller, for example. We teach the dog how to acclimate to a different schedule. I teach my mums-to-be to hold a child, for example, a whole load of blankets in their arms, so a dog can get that sort of that new visual that they're going to see. Sometimes you can play the sounds of a baby crying. It's not going to be your own specific baby's cries, but you can, so you can get your dog acclimated to that sound that it's going to hear. But I would say with all of that, with preparation like that, that's probably the most important thing you can do. When you first bring baby back, have somebody else carry the baby if you can, so that mom can say hello to the dog without baby in her arms. And then after that, sit down with baby, and you can have the dog come and investigate as long as somebody else is with the dog, and that the baby is not at the dog's face level, right? So maybe you have the dog sniffing the baby's feet, but never the head. And then it's just a matter of like you're getting acquainted and you're trying to deal with this new situation, a new environment of a new being in your home. The dog is doing the same. So you're both having to adjust. And it's going to take you a while, it's going to take your dog a while. But when we say never, ever, ever leave an infant, baby, toddler, young child alone with a dog for even 30 seconds, we truly mean it. This isn't just, oh, I'm going to leave the baby in the bassinet and go to the bathroom. That's when we see some major attacks happen. Because unfortunately, babies can sometimes maybe be seen as toys that squeak and make noise and smell funny and move funny. So sometimes, we say that some attacks might happen not just because the dog is being malicious, but because the dog is, oh, there is a nice toy for me to play with. I mean, it sounds awful, but that's what we see time and time again. So I don't want to cause alarm because, parents have a lot of stress on them anyway when a new baby comes into the home. But it can be an amazing thing for a child to grow with a dog. So use baby gates to separate. If you can't supervise baby and dog at the same time, use baby gates to separate. That's absolutely fine. And that means that doesn't give dogs a feeling of isolation. They can still be part of the family unit, but it gives mom and dad some time to be able to do the things they need to do whilst baby's safe in a bassinet or the crib, where dog is safe in the safe zone, and when mom and dad can focus on things that they can do. So those are a couple of things that I would say, and just know that your life will be turned upside down, and the dog's life will be turned upside down, and that's okay.
Thank you, Victoria. Last question that I have, and this is for Dr. Staubus, and it's about preparing. So we've talked a lot about the importance of being a responsible pet owner and dealing with this COVID-19 environment. One of the things that we haven't touched on, and you as an expert in the rescue field can talk about this briefly. What do we need to do to prepare? Should we get sick or should a family member get sick and be unable to care for their dog? The last thing we want is to end up in the hospital and not have a plan in place. So can you talk a little bit about what people should do to prepare their pet should they get sick or be unable to care for their pet?
Thank you, Heather. That's such an important question. And just like we plan to prepare for various natural disasters, hurricanes, floods, and such, wildfires, we really need to, in this case, plan for that possibility that we may become too ill to care for our pet, perhaps even while we're still at home, or if we, of course, have to be hospitalized. So make your plan ahead of time. We always recommend that you pack your go bag for your dog as well as yourself. And in that bag, you have ample supply of food for several weeks, particularly if that dog is on some special diet that might be difficult for someone else to source while you're ill. Any medications that dog is on, we want to have very specific instructions in that bag of how are these administered, when and how, and make sure we have a ample supply to allow for whatever time that might be. And then whatever other objects that are crucial for that dog, if it has toys and beds and things to make that dog feel comfortable in a transition. But then it's your game plan of, well, who are my people? Who are my backup? If I get sick, who is in my network that already hopefully has a relationship with this dog and who can safely take that dog in, or dog or cat? And also, if you're sick, you might want to minimize your interaction with that animal so that you're not leaving a lot of viral particles on them like any other object that might be in your home. And as we're learning more and more about this virus and how it affects various species, it's just wise to perhaps make a little space with that. But have who is going to be your backup for pet care ready. If you do not have that backup ready, it's time to start really thinking about how could that happen, particularly if you do in fact become sick and you don't feel that you have anyone in your world that can take those animals. Many, just here in my own home state of Oklahoma, the Payne County response team, we're on standby for that very possibility that we will have citizens that become too ill to care for their pets and they don't have a resource within their circle to help them. And because of the whole nature of the epidemic, we certainly don't want to be trying to dump more load onto our shelters and rescues that are already struggling to care for the animals that they have. So that's our emergency management teams across the nation can help connect community with emergency need should that occur. But hopefully we can be neighbor to neighbor and family to family and keep our pets safe and care for ourselves, because the last thing that someone who's really ill and struggling with this virus needs is to be worried about the well-being of their animals.
What a perfect way to end. Thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you to all the panelists who have shared their knowledge and expertise. For those of you that have may notice in the chat, if you have any additional questions after this webinar or would like to do an interview with any of the panelists, please contact Michael Sanfilippo at AVMA. His email is down in the chat box and you can email him. He will arrange to work with, coordinate for an interview. This broadcast will also be available within the next hour or so. So if you missed a part or want to go back and review it, it will be available on Vimeo as well as Dropbox, and you will receive an email with those links. Thank you all again for having interest and for hopefully sharing information that we have put out there about Dog Bite Prevention Week. Again, thank you for your relationship that you have with your four-legged friends, and keep them safe. Have a wonderful day, and thank you all for joining us.